Hello everyone, welcome to MJ Hobby Corner. So this year I've been focusing a lot on sci-fi. Sci-fi games, space battles, battles on other planets, all that kind of stuff. So much so that I even wrote a zine that's only going to, I think, extend to December. And then after December, it's going to stop because I have other zine ideas. But this topic about space and space combat has always intrigued me. And I've had a few issues with sci-fi space games. Not necessarily the rules, because there are some great miniature war game rules out there. There is also some great RPG rules out there that take place in space. So it's not necessarily the rules themselves, but it's how we depict the environment of space. And that's what led me to do all the research in astronomy to bring a little bit of science into it to see what it is that, astronomers have to say about it. Since I have a science background, I decided to do it that way. And I discovered that a lot of the science is actually more fascinating, the discoveries that is, than our own fiction. Now in this video, we're going to look at one of the most misrepresented worlds in our sci-fi lore. A type of world where there's a lot of misconception. And that is the Jovian gas giant. The secret to this planet is very simple, actually. This is the top of an old cake storage container, and it had this very nice clear dome. Now, the container was old, we weren't using it anymore, and it had this hole up there, which is why you see the little cotton piece. Now, it's not a perfect sphere. And it's not a perfect sphere because you also have this indentation up here. But it's the best that I can do with what I have. So I recycled this piece and decided that I would bring my Jovian world to life using this. This would represent the northern half of the planet. The rest of the planet is down below in the void, basically. It's a good way to represent planets on the tabletop, I found, even better than using a ball, a sphere. Although I've used those too in the past, and they work. But I like this better. I like the whole half a planet thing. So now, the trick was to take this thing and paint it. So let's take a look at that. I used a little bit of Krylon paint. And this is a metallic gold. And when I spray painted it, I made sure that the plastic was only very softly painted. So it's a very thin covering of paint, and one that allows you to see the interior of the globe. So this way, when I stick my pillow batter in there and light it up, you can kind of see the outline of the clouds, which represents, this turbulence. So to paint this partial globe, at first I use a flat brush like this one. And this is a number 42. These are the cheaper brushes that I get at the Walmart craft area. And basically what I do is at first I take my first color, which was the orange, and I make my orange bands. Now at first I do a little bit of a sort of run the brush along as I'm spinning the globe with my hand, as I'm spinning the plastic cover, because it's not really a globe, it's a half globe. But as I spin it and I have the brush on the surface, it creates a nice irregular band. And I do about 3 of these orange bands. Now, once I'm done with that, I switch over to these. Now, these are my brushes. These were given to me by Julie. She had a whole bunch of these. She wasn't using these, and these are makeup brushes. And she doesn't use these anymore, so she gave them to me, and I use them a lot in my terrain and when I'm painting figures. I have all different sizes now, many thanks to Julie. And what I do is I'll take a cap, I add a little bit of paint to that cap, dip my brush, and this time I stipple. And I use different sizes so that I can make my bands smaller or larger. And that's all I do. That's it. That's the whole thing to painting the walls of clouds that are surrounding the gas giant. Now, I use this orange. This would represent probably the iron oxide bands. So these are clouds loaded with iron vapor. And depending on where the gas giant is positioned, this would definitely be a good color to use. I used some elephant gray, and these are all apple barrel paints. A little bit of melted chocolate. Now, this paint is very watered down, but it's a nice dark brown, and I use that to give a little shading to the bands. And finally, the white, which is the final highlight, and I only use this on the edge of the bands. So here comes the interesting part. Once my dome is completely dry, I've painted it to resemble whatever planet I want. I then take an RGB light. I have several of these. I like to use these RGB lights in a lot of my games. And this one is one of my favorites because it has different effects. It'll make flickering lights. They'll flicker at different speeds, different colors. And then I take a bunch of my pillow batter, some of which is colored, and I place it on top of it. Now, in addition, I do have a small light here that flickers. I don't like this because it flashes too quickly. I'm going to get something that flashes a little bit slower. But this represents lightning flashes within the planet. This is something that is the trademark of one of these Jovian giants. So once all that is complete, I put the dome on top. Okay, and now I take the dome, put it over, maybe give it a little twirl there to move the cotton a little bit, the pillow batter a little bit, make sure everything is inside. We don't want any leaking gas. And there it is. Well, my Jovian world is ready. So we turn on the RGB, and we have that effect. Interesting. Keep moving. All right, that's a little fast. All right. We have all these effects. That's a little fast. That's a little freaky. Now, this is one of my favorite effects to represent like the heat of a hot Jovian. So a Jovian that's really close to its star. This is how I would represent it, kind of like that flaming, interior. So it's later in the evening in the studio, and you can definitely appreciate in the darkness, with the lighting being a little darker, you could definitely appreciate the glow of the world. And it's a little bit exaggerated, and I like that. I like the strangeness of it, It really calls attention to the tabletop. Now here I'm clicking on some of the effects, and there's the green version. There is a colder blue, so a colder gas giant, and there you go. it's really cool. So the moons, the way I would depict the moons, these worlds have many, many moons for the most part. Jovian planets like Saturn, for example, have 243 moons. Jupiter has a little bit over 100. Estimates vary. But alien Jovians would probably have hundreds of moons, right? And so that's cool in the sense that I can use the moons in my fiction to create some kind of lunar infrastructure, adding colonies to a few of those moons to support the operation on the planet. There would also be some kind of orbital infrastructure to help with the rigs, for repairs, search and rescue, all these kinds of things that would be necessary to maintain the economic feasibility of harvesting these gases, right? What they mean for your solar economy, that's up to you. That's up to your world building. I know that for me, exotic fuels and all kinds of industrial chemicals would be extracted from these worlds. And in terms of the harvesters themselves, you got to be a little crazy to want to work in these worlds, right? So I would represent the moons flat just so that I can put objective markers on the moons. And in a space battle, these moons would be fought over. And if one player wins, the attacking player, then they're in a good position to really take over the harvester operation. I think that as an attacking player, if you don't have to destroy the harvester operation, that would be best. If you can take it over and use it, right? I think that would be the best thing. But you could definitely make a little campaign of all this. And here I have the different Starbuilder cards with the different kinds of gas giants. So these would be little planet profiles. I'm going to figure out a way to put a ring on this like Saturn. All right. That's going to be interesting. And I want it to be like a little bit horizontal so it's not totally straight. We'll see what happens. So the lighting is a little different now that it's evening and I'm recording this part of the video. So if you want to read more about Jovian worlds, I dedicate an entire issue to it of Starbuilder, where I talk about the different layers of the atmosphere in these worlds, and which layer would probably be the safest layer for harvesters to operate. Now, intrepid harvesters are going to want to they'll want to go into the more dangerous areas because these areas will probably have the richest isotopes and the richest gases for harvesting. These are the areas where most of the storms would also navigate. So you can read about it in Starbuilder. It's obviously a lot of it is my opinion only and how I interpret the science that I read and added my imagination and turned it into fiction. It's all my opinion, really. But you can read it and see what you can use out of it in your own games. I know I will be using a lot of that information for my RPG. But in space, gas giants actually they can be hazardous in other ways. And one thing is that they have immense gravity wells. These planets produce a lot of gravity. And not only that, but their magnetospheres are also very powerful. A magnetosphere is a comet-shaped, invisible force around the planet. All planets have it. Earth has a magnetosphere. It protects from the radiation that comes out of the sun, right? So magnetospheres are very important. So it has to do with the magnetic forces of the planet. Well, in Jovian worlds, they can be really intense, which could also pose some interesting hazards for starships. So any battle that takes place around Jovian world will be a very interesting environment for the battle. And both sides, that's the good news, both sides will more than likely feel the effect. And I don't care if it's alien or human or whatever, you know. It's nice to put a few limitations, a few things that go into the game that make it a little more challenging, right? And that was the whole reason for me to write Starbuilder, really. It was a way to put forth these opinions and just experiment with it myself, with my own games. So hopefully we'll have some games in the future where we experiment with this stuff. I'm already doing it little by little, right? In Planetfall, we saw some star effects. And certainly in the future, I'd like to experiment more. But now I have a world that I can actually use on my tabletop. And I hope to make more in the future. I also want to make different scale armadas because in the wintertime, I have very limited space and I'll need smaller scale stuff, right? It'll never be to scale with the actual planet, but I can make them smaller. And maybe we'll have some cool games, you know? So, well, that's all, folks. Thank you very much. I want to thank all my patrons. Shout out to all my patrons for all your support. Patrons get a copy of anything that I write, any zines. I have a few zines planned for after New Year's. Starbuilder will only continue till New Year's. We'll see what kinds of articles I can add from here to there and make it interesting. This last issue, I talk about binary stars, and we also continue to talk about rocky worlds. So check that out. That's going to probably continue because I don't have enough space in the zine to mention everything. It's a lot of work. It really is a lot of work. But I have a lot of fun with it. So I hope you enjoy it. I hope my patrons enjoy it. And thank you for all your support. I'll see you in the next video, guys. And we'll see what kinds of things, crazy things, I can come up with. All right, guys, have a great one. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye now.